the Strip. The Israeli defense minister today ordered the complete siege of Gaza. He said that, quote, no electricity, food, water, or fuel would be allowed in. And just so everyone knows, the Gaza Strip is home to 2 million people. It's one of the most densely packed places in the world. Half the population is kids. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to hide. It's been called the world's largest open-air prison, and life is hell for the people who live there already. The Bush administration in 2006, in their infinite wisdom under their democracy agenda, pushed the Palestinian Authority to hold elections. Hamas won those elections, and Gaza has been blockaded by Israel ever since. So there's not enough electricity on a given day. The water's undrinkable. Unemployment is at like 50%. So there's no way for Israel to conduct a military campaign in Gaza that is targeted at just Hamas. Hamas lives in and among the people by design. This will be urban combat. And now Hamas is saying they're going to execute one person for every airstrike that hits Gaza. So this is very, very scary. I'm also very concerned about Hezbollah getting involved, launching maybe a second attack from the north. There's a lot of discussion about Iran's role here and the question of how Israel may or may not respond to Iran directly. So the Biden team, I mean, I think they're right to support Israel in this horrific moment for the country. But I also hope that behind the scenes, Biden is pushing Netanyahu to urge some restraint to try to limit civilian casualties. And then long term, we have to get back to a process to fix the underlying political problems that lead, the average Palestinian person to think there's some hope of living in a Palestinian state someday.
It also seemed, I saw that administration officials were saying that Iran sort of wants to draw us into a larger conflict in the Middle East as part of this too, part of the response.
Would not surprise me. Although there's been some reports about Iranian involvement, how much or how little they may have been involved in this, and we just don't know yet.
And this also sort of risks the normalization of relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia that the Biden administration was trying to broker.
Yeah, they've been pushing very hard to try to create normalization between the Saudi government and the Israeli government. That would involve giving a lot of incentives to the Saudis, but it would also, according to Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and according to Tony Blinken, who actually talked to me and Ben about this on Pod Save the World, there would have to be some sort of significant steps taken towards a Palestinian state. And I think the politics around that get a lot harder in the wake of this terrorist attack.
Yeah. Love it. Obviously, there's a broader context to this war that's not always easy to find if you're just wading through some of the shittier takes and debates on Twitter. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on the politics shaping the Israeli and U.S. response right now?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things just was striking in how quickly people jumped to their instinctive and natural previously held political stances while watching something unfold that isn't this isn't like a news event that is at the speed of a 24-hour news cycle. It is something more in the context of like 50 years of history, and within hours, if not thousands, and within hours you see people, within minutes you see people jumping to
confident
takes, and it was, there is a, I think part of it is, you and Ben talked about this, the intractability and the way in which the evil and darkness of what's unfolding puts even further away any possibility of a positive political solution. I think that leads people to not say what a solution might be, or not be even willing to talk about what people believe or know but can't say in a moment like this, which is, I think, something, again, you and Ben talk about a lot, and you talk about even when the world isn't focused on this, which is there can be no end as long as there is no hope for people who live in Palestine. And the thing I found really sort of depraved in watching it unfold is, in the absence of any space for any kind of positive dialogue or any way to talk about what a solution might be, you see right-wingers going right to attacking of the Biden administration and misinformation and propaganda. You see a ton of just virulent anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, I think in some corners of the left, you see a more subtle version of anti-Semitism in which there is a leap made from legitimate, fair, deserved criticism of Israel's abuses and cruelty in Gaza to the belief that in order to demonstrate your understanding of that, it is somehow wrong to acknowledge or even look at the horrors and evil that Hamas is inflicting. And there's an instinct that I think is really toxic, which is to believe you can provide context to the murder of children and elderly people and innocent civilians, and look at that rave where at least 250 people have been killed. The biggest mass shooting in U.S. history was 60 people in Las Vegas. And if your instinct is to see a moment like that and believe that your politics dictates putting that in a larger context, as if compassion towards those people is some kind of a limited resource, I think is morally wrong. And like, my reaction to seeing this all unfold was, this is a moral abomination. And it's not just because it is evil, it is terrorism, it is monstrous on its own face, especially when you consider that a lot of the people killed probably would feel quite at home at a U.S. college campus protesting the Netanyahu government, and have been protesting the Netanyahu government for their abuses, but also because it is reprehensible in that it will not redound to the benefit of a single Palestinian kid. This will lead to more horrible abuses and more cruelty and more violence in Gaza. And so just like being willing to step back and just say, this is like a moral abomination, full stop, I just should have been the first instinct. And you saw from both the right and on some parts of the left a refusal to just start at that place and look for to go back to their sort of political priors.
Yeah, I mean, a guy I interviewed on Pod Save the World, who I consider a friend now, because we just, we talk on DM, right? Like so many friends do these days. He is a reporter for Haaretz. He moved from Tel Aviv to one of these communities on the border of Gaza because he covered that community in one of the prior Gaza conflicts. And he was so inspired by the community's commitment to peace in the wake of, you're in the line of fire literally from these rockets. And this guy, Amir, and his wife and his 1-year-old and his 3-year-old ended up sitting in the safe room in their home, which safe room doesn't mean room full of guns and supplies. It means your kid's room, because that's the most fortified in case it gets hit by a rocket, for 8 hours. And they were saved by Amir's dad, who rescued them.
It's a wild story.
Unbelievable. So, love it. I think what you said was really well said, because Hamas is responsible for what happened Saturday. It was a terrorist attack. There's no defense for massacring a fucking music festival or kidnapping kids and babies. And I don't care who does it. There's no defending it. And the inability for people on Twitter just to say that just made my head explode. But to your broader point, you can't view this in isolation, because there are these broader security and political contexts in Israel and the West Bank and Gaza. And it starts with the fact that there's no hope for a lot of Palestinian people. The talks have been dead for a long time. The Trump administration pivoted to the Abraham Accords, which is just a bunch of efforts to incentivize countries in the region to cut deals with Israel, usually just giant arms sales. But the Palestinians were an afterthought in those talks, and they were an afterthought in the Biden administration. No, less so for the Biden administration. Listen, they were not. The focus has not been on a Middle East peace agreement or a two-state solution for a very long time. And meanwhile, life for Palestinians is getting worse and worse. We talked about Gaza, but Palestinians in the West Bank and Israel have limited rights compared to their Jewish counterparts. In 2021, one of the most influential Israeli human rights groups called it apartheid. Palestinians in the West Bank have been getting pushed out of their homes by settlers. There's been settler violence. That settler violence is often protected by the Israeli military. And so, then there's Netanyahu coming back into power with the most right-wing government in history, these ultra-Orthodox, ultra-nationalist ministers that he made common cause with to get power, to prevent himself from getting prosecuted, basically. But that, has led to this context where people feel like they've just foreclosed any future for them. And so, again, there's no justification for what Hamas did. But we have to try to understand how the average Palestinian feels, how little hope they have, and how that context under occupation can fuel an armed resistance. It can fuel terrorist groups like Hamas, and that we need some sort of political track for a two-state solution to solve the underlying problems. There's no military response that's going to fix this.
Bibi's promise, right, has been that, his right-wing government can keep Israelis safe through, force and through the repression of Palestinians, and it couldn't. right? Like that's the it's not bringing lasting security to Israelis or Palestinians, right? And like I just think too that about the inability of people to just condemn violence, right? Like if you're going to condemn violence against civilians, you have to condemn violence against civilians wherever it happens, wherever